Hidden beneath the seas, the walls of a great city are visible. There are those who believe the architects were the vanguards of a society that took root in a new land.
Those people are
Who
idiots.
built it and why are still unknown.
Who cares?
Perhaps these ancients knew more of the world than modern men imagine. In
Perhaps
any
they were just really
civilization, there are
bored.
some who take risks. Men who reach beyond safe borders.
Men who wear loincloths.
Men who lift rocks
The
for
passing
fun.
of adventurers may be signaled by structures on the land, marks in the earth, ciphers in stone, like the
Reviews
curious
on
ruin
Yelp.
on a bleak New Hampshire hilltop. It is called Mystery Hill. Who built it and why?
Who cares? Oh, Thorpe, this is all about us. We're totally living rent-free in humans' heads these days.
Search of extraterrestrials. Well, we got some good news and some bad news for you folks. One, we're extraterrestrials. Two, you've been looking in the wrong places.
New evidence suggests that North America was colonized long before the birth of Christ. Who were the colonists?
Who?
How did they come to this wilderness?
Ah yes, that very scientific point in time.
Who are they calling strange?
This series presents information based in part on theory and conjecture.
Oh,
The
Leonard
producer's
Nimoy,
purpose is
Spock
to suggest
himself.
some possible explanation, but not necessarily the only ones to the
Live long
mysteries
and
we will
prosper
examine.
with residuals.
The legends
Quiet
of
down,
Native
I'm trying to watch
Americans tell of
TV.
the first men who came into the world. They were brothers to wolves, or sired by the very stars.
Excuse me, Mr. Nimoy, you have to
Men, it
stop
was
recording.
said,
We have to
were
kill that guy in the
And
background.
animals were men. And that is how the Indians saw their own beginnings. Beyond Indian legend, we really know very little of those first men. Time and again, we find marks of their passing.
Like these subtle rocks in the ground.
Who were they? Where did they come from? What drove them to probe the wilderness and build outposts? Too many
Hunger,
traces have
fear,
been left by early
anxiety.
wanderers. They cannot be ignored or easily explained away.
Oh, sure they
scattered
can.
enclaves, a fragment of what had been built may survive. It will become a small piece of our past.
Me making
An item
woman out of
evidence
rocks.
that leads researchers to the discovery of what truly occurred. When 17th
Just
century
because some guy
Europeans
stacked some rocks
colonized
somewhere
what is
doesn't mean it
now
was
New
aliens,
Hampshire,
dude.
they found that someone had been there before them. At the time, no one thought much about the stone ruin near New Salem. They called the
And look, I
curious
know your
stone
kid got
structure
free
Mystery
recorder
Hill,
lessons, but
and
that
let it
doesn't mean
go
put
at
them in
that.
this show.
Mysterious it was. Totally unlike anything else the Europeans would encounter in their settlement of North America. It would not be until 300 years had passed that investigators would begin to solve the riddle of Mystery Hill. Their research would challenge some cherished ideas about the past. It's easier to cling to traditional
Apparently they named it
beliefs than accept
Conclusion
the
Hill. We wouldn't have to
possibility
bother
that we
with all
really know
this.
very little about our past. But if new
Holy
ideas
polyester,
sometimes are
Batman.
uncomfortable, they can also be exciting. In the past year, evidence has been uncovered which suggests that there was a highly civilized presence on the shores of America
Dr.
thousands of years
Zaius?
ago. The land called America was not devoid of people when the Europeans came. Europeans called the natives savages. The natives called themselves Ottawa and Cree, Mohawk and Seminole, Dakota, Pawnee, and
Jack
Kiowa.
and Jill.
They were as unprepared to meet Europeans as the settlers were to understand them.
I don't think the settlers bothered to try to understand anything.
Whatever their common origin might have been, the old and new world peoples had little in common. For the most part, the American Indian was still in the Stone Age. They revered their physical environment and lived close to it. They built lightly on the land, and although they banded together into great nations of hunters and warriors,
Silly
their
environmentalists.
cities had no more lasting impact than a carpet of bright leaves in an autumn forest. Mystery Hill is not in the manner of buffalo hide teepees. It was built to last. Indians of this region did not build in stone. They lacked even the tools to do so. Mystery Hill would have been destroyed years ago if it were not for the efforts of Bostonian Robert Stone. Stone bought up the ruin so that it could be preserved.
A
for
man named
scientific
Stone
study
preserving
and the
stones?
enjoyment of
I
tourists.
smell a conspiracy.
Yeah. They would put the ashes in there, in other words.
That's what we assume, yeah.
Yeah. Was this standing when you came here?
Yes.
Professor Hans Holzer has come to learn what Stone knows of the site. A noted author and student of antiquity, Holzer will attempt to answer the questions: who passed this way, and why?
Who passed these stones, and why?
The American Southwest is an arid land. Its native inhabitants found it difficult to scratch out a hold here. They built cities of mud brick, backed against cliffs for protection.
They invented the goat.
Life hasn't changed much for the inheritors of this land.
The goats?
Outside of the few big cities of the Southwest, men still herd livestock and try to wrench a living from the dry soil. Theirs is a rich heritage, nevertheless. We know
Sounds
the
like a
Pueblo
good life to me.
Indians
I
by
don't know
their
what he's
etchings
talking
in
about.
stone. Their cliff-bound apartments showed thoughtful design and careful execution.
An
But
open
brick
space
is
fork
not
land.
stone. The techniques
And feng
used to
shui.
build the Pueblos did not build Mystery Hill.
Then who built it,
Hans
Spock?
Holzer
The
and Robert
Mormons?
Stone
Come
can
on
find
now, be
little that
honest.
Mystery Hill has in common with the Pueblos of the Southwest. Its architects must have come from another place, another culture.
Or it
In the
was
Medicine
just
Bow
the people
Mountains
who
of
were there.
Wyoming can be found another curiosity in stone. It is called the medicine wheel.
Oh, it's called medicine wheel. It gives more headaches than it
The geometric
cures.
arrangement of rocks puzzled Western travelers for a long time. Most investigators are now agreed that the wheel was an Indian calendar. By the placement of stones, its makers could calculate the time remaining before the summer thaw. The very
And you
lack
think
of a
these people
settlement
couldn't build
area
a simple
breaks the tie
stone
to
structure?
Mystery
What?
Hill.
Maybe one of them was just really into sculpture. You know,
The
an
long
artist.
central lane at Mystery Hill is reminiscent of some walled-in streets of ancient Europe. And where does the lane end? At a large central structure, Professor Holzer has reason to believe was a temple. Again, a slender thread which may link Mystery Hill to the great cities of ancient Europe. Might the strange visitors to Mystery Hill have crossed an ocean? We have evidence that Norsemen like Leif Erikson made epic voyages in the 10th century. Erikson was blown off course while making a passage to Greenland.
Hey,
The
what he did on
landfall
that boat
he
is his
reported
business.
making is thought to have been Newfoundland. He likely touched the New World, but all evidence is that he had neither the charter nor the will.
Don't
to
worry, the
begin a
New World
colony.
consented.
500 years later, the Spaniards and the Portuguese would supplant the Norsemen as explorers of the sea. A leading navigator of the day was Christopher Columbus, who convinced
Navigator?
the Spanish throne he could sail west
That's
to
funny.
India.
Don't look too closely in those eyes.
These
Ew.
voyages were overtures to the coming of European colonization of the Americas in the 17th century. It is certain, however, that there were ships capable of making ocean crossings long before the time of Columbus or Leif Erikson.
Well, yeah.
Did
How
the
do
strange
extraterrestrials
visitors who built
play into
Mystery
this?
Hill
I'm
arrive by ship
confused.
from the east? And is this curious design on stone the random sign of a newcomer? Or
Does
is it
this
the hull
mole
of a
look
forgotten
bad to you?
ship that turned its bow into the unknown centuries ago? At a laboratory in Cambridge, Massachusetts, scientists burn a bit of charcoal found at Mystery Hill.
And a little bit of crack.
Charcoal is largely carbon, and carbon contains minute quantities
Ah yes,
of radioactive
PhD student
material.
Jerry Reed.
This material decays at a constant rate. Knowing that, scientists can fix the age of the sample. They determined that it is at least 3,000 years old. The charcoal was found wedged between slabs of rock at Mystery Hill. The fire that
Conclusion?
produced it
Rock
was
is
lighted
old.
1,000
Shocking.
years before the birth of Christ. And the open question remains, but by whom?
Ancient humans. Duh.
Look, humans, we're aliens, and we're here to tell you we did not want anything to do with
Mystery
you
Hill,
until
New
you
Hampshire,
developed
could not have been
hygiene,
more aptly
okay?
named. Its origins have puzzled men for centuries.
It's mostly the invention of pants that we finally started paying attention to humans.
The architects of Mystery Hill had an impressive knowledge of astronomy.
We're standing in the astronomical center of the site, and if you want a view to the true north, you'll see a large
Yes, the
standing
astronomical
monolith
center,
out here.
a clearing.
It's composed of 5 stones, one missing that dates the site. Over to the east of us, we have a strange stone that's been on the wall for centuries that marks the summer sunrise. Now, if we look around to the southwest, we see the winter sunset stone. That was the first one that was found and kicked off this investigation.
Stones that may have helped the strange visitors plot the seasons. They are substantial clues to the identity of the original Mystery Hill architects.
Arrogant do you have to be to think that people before you weren't as knowledgeable about things that you are?
On the Salisbury Plain in England broods a more familiar example of the kind of time-keeping function
Ah, yes,
monoliths
trick-or-treating.
appear to have had for the ancients. To this day, some who call themselves Druids gather at Stonehenge to mark the longest day of the year. It is believed that long centuries
And have
ago,
orgies.
Druids offered up human sacrifice as part of their seasonal rituals.
Well, only if they were really wanted
Sacrifice
to.
may have been part of the firmament at Mystery Hill also.
Viewing position for the sacrificial table I was telling you about. You were asking me about the oracle tube.
That's right.
It comes out from the oracle chamber underneath.
Stone points out a polished slab of rock.
6-8
The
inches.
grooves might once have run with blood to appease a god whose voice rumbled up from the earth.
We used to give the oracle.
Jumping to conclusions there.
It
Wow.
appears that the builders of Mystery Hill imported their gods as well as their science. Some had theorized that Mystery Hill was the work of New Hampshire colonialists.
This is when we come to the entrance of the oracle chamber.
Those dastardly
What
colonialists.
Stone calls the sacrificial table and the recently excavated oracle chamber are unlikely relics of English colonialism.
Can you really call it an oracle chamber if there was no oracle in there?
Mystery Hill. Professor Holzer has seen similar sacred grottos before, complete with speaking tubes to humble the faithful. The so-called oracle chamber had been the work of another society, a civilization where obedience to the Delphic voices was immediate and complete. The chamber was found not in America, but amid the ancient ruins of the Mediterranean. Holzer will need more than these similarities if he is to advance his theory about Mystery Hill's strange visitors.
And here's my rock
Harvard
collection. It's not as
archaeologist
impressive,
Barry
but
Feld
hey.
has spent years studying inscriptions and drawings
Do you
from
want to come
Mystery
see my
Hill
etchings?
and other unexplained ruins in North America.
Now, what about some of these inscriptions that have been found? What do they indicate in terms of people's presences in this area?
This one
Where
here
they're
says,
from?
I love you, Mommy.
Well, they really tell us that America in ancient times was a melting pot of the races of Europe, just as it
They're
is
mostly
today.
pornography.
Same peoples from all parts of Europe and North Africa, living together, even speaking their own languages side by side, and writing their own inscriptions.
Say the secret
and
way,
their
get
own
$100.
writing
Say the
systems.
secret way, get
What people
$100.
came here?
Basques from Portugal, Celts from Spain and Portugal, Phoenicians from Carthage and probably from Phoenicia
Phoenicia
itself in Syria, and ancient Egyptian traders too.
Why do you think these people came here?
Boredom.
Probably initially by accident. Fishermen, you know, the Portuguese people are wonderful deep-sea fishermen, and inevitably a fisherman is going to be blown away from land in a storm. A fisherman knows how to look after himself when he's blown out to sea, and in modern times very long voyages have been performed that way. So initially accidentally,
I'm gonna
later
barf.
deliberately.
Whoa!
Portugal's dorymen still ply the Atlantic in the kind of small but sturdy craft they've apparently used for centuries. That the ancestors of these fishermen were skilled sailors, few could dispute. Holzer doubts that a fisherman blown off course would attempt to build a city.
Hey, what he does
He
on his boat
himself
is his
pursue another
business.
line.
In other words, there's no doubt in your mind that ancient people from the Mediterranean area came and settled in New England, among other places.
No doubt at all. They probably settled all that part of North America that could be reached by ship. That is to say, the
Why are you
whole
putting the cue
Mississippi
cards over
Valley
on the
and
floor?
branches of the Mississippi.
The Mediterranean. At one time, Knossos was her capital, a jewel-like city on the island of Crete. All that's left now are the weather-worn ruins of graceful temples, courtyards, and apartments. The people of this island were called Minoans. They were heirs to Phoenician sea kings who sailed here from what is now Lebanon. The Minoans loved music and art almost as much as they loved the sea.
Just like
Even their
every other
architecture
culture.
had a lyrical quality. The sea never seemed far from their thoughts. They must have gloried in all its aspects. The sea brought the Minoans power and wealth.
For a planet that's
Perhaps they
70%
had
water,
commerce with
the
other
fact that
advanced
society is obsessed
civilizations
with the
now
sea
lost
should
to
not
us.
be surprising.
History records that there were catastrophic
Well, shit,
earthquakes
run,
in
it's
the
the cops.
Mediterranean basin around 1600 BC. Knossos was by then Queen City of the Mediterranean. She may have been a haven for the refugees of doomed civilizations. If so, the influx of new citizens must have created pressure for expansion. The Minoans already had colonies on the north coast of Africa, and recent evidence discovered underwater in the Caribbean suggests that they had traveled to the Americas. It is nevertheless a radical theory that sailors from a Bronze Age culture could have dispatched the first strange visitors to the New World.
Professor Fell, how do your colleagues at
man.
Harvard feel about these amazing discoveries you've made?
Very mixed feelings. My closest colleagues, who of course support my work and assist me in it, have very
they don't
positive
support my
feelings.
comb-over.
And some other colleagues, more
He doesn't even
particularly
support his
concerned with
comb-over. It's
traditional aspects
haphazard.
of archaeology, so far have not supported my opinions.
Well, how did the ancient Phoenicians get here?
They had ships, Dr. Halser, better than those available to Columbus. Here is a carving of the hull of one of them that we found at Mount
We're
Hope,
certain that's
Rhode
what that
Island.
is.
We have one other carving from another part of North America.
It's a giant
And
penis, so we're not going to
the
show you
fact
that.
they made the voyages is sufficiently plain from the inscriptions that they left en route.
The inscriptions Professor Fell refers to are found in abundance at Mystery Hill, if one knows what to look for.
Carvings in the rocks?
Osborne Stone, who assists his cousin Robert in preserving the site, points one out to Dr. Holzer.
Apparently is a G.
It has come to be called the G stone. Holzer reads much more than a G on the weathered rock.
To me, there's no question that this was written by people who spoke the ancient Phoenician language and used the Phoenician alphabet. The origin of this inscription is in the area of Phoenicia and the island of Crete, the Minoan culture, where Phoenician people
Ironically
settled
enough, somebody was
and then
just trying to
became
draw a
the
dog.
Minoan people.
Professor Holzer has found his answer to the puzzle of Mystery Hill. From a small island in the Mediterranean to a hilltop in New Hampshire, It must have been an incredible journey. Everything feels right and seems to fit. The style of masonry is the same. The walled lanes are common to Knossos. One could almost imagine being on Crete if it weren't for the Yankee accents and pine trees. Many will find it hard to believe the implications of Professor Fell's painstaking research or the results of the carbon dating. But the late summer of 1976 saw two distinguished
carbon is old enough to date?
joining the ranks of those who support the Minoan theory. And there were indications of more hard evidence to come. Skeptics abound in every culture. The Minoans may have found it difficult to believe there was much of a future here in America. It must have seemed so primitive. Perhaps that's why they vanished. The same curiosity which may someday take us to the stars has apparently propelled mankind throughout its long centuries of wanderings on this planet.
Oh boy, this was old.
We have evidence now that America was known to great civilizations which had become dim memories long before the birth of Christ. Much of what those strange visitors knew may be lost
Again
to
with
us
this Christ
forever.
guy. What's he got to do with it?
The coast of America we thought of as pristine until the 15th century may have in fact been a thriving outpost of ancient commerce and exploration. We can only guess. The record of Mystery Hill was ignored for hundreds of years. It tells us that the
And for
Phoenicians
good
may
reason.
not
It's
have
a
been
hill
the
with
first
rocks.
strange visitors to America, but that they were apparently the first to build a link between the old and new worlds.
Now I know why the name of the show is
would be
In Search
broken
of and
for
not
reasons we cannot
Conclusions
fathom
and
yet.
Answers.
Centuries later, the old world would rediscover the new. This time, the link would hold.
Or the artist formerly known as the Old World.
Lost civilizations, extraterrestrials, myths and monsters, missing
Yes?
persons, magic and witchcraft,
Ooh.
unexplained phenomena. In Search of cameras are traveling the world, seeking out these great mysteries. This program was the result of the work of scientists, researchers, and a group of highly skilled technicians.
None of whom were on this episode. This was fascinating, Gax.
Yeah, sure. Okay, maybe we'll watch some more later.
Geocron.
Hey, thanks for watching. We really appreciate you.
Hey, if you want to see more, leave a comment, like, and subscribe. You puny humans.
See you next time. Bye.